It's a sports show with Woody and Les and Dan Petty in here now to talk about what's trending now. He is the digital director of sports for the Denver Post.
So Terry Fry asked a really interesting question over the weekend.
That would be a shock.
Terry
Fry asking.
Whoa, Woody, jeez, it's only Monday.
I talked about Saturday.
A really interesting question of CSU coach Mike Bobo, and specifically looking at the difference in talent between the SEC and the Mountain West. As you might expect, the talent level is going to be sort of different, and especially for a guy like Mike Bobo, who's basically spent his entire career at Georgia. In the SEC, now transitioning to the Mountain West, where you're not necessarily seeing the bigger guys on the line and sort of other things. And he asked him, you know, what's that evaluation been like? He asked the same question to Jim McElwain, the former coach, now back in Florida, and McElwain always sort of dodged it and didn't quite answer it. And Bobo actually at least tried to answer it. Said, you know what, I really have to wait and see sort of what I'm going to see when they actually play games. But I think it's an interesting question. What do you think about the kind of adjustments and what Mike Bobo is thinking with in terms of talent differential between a school like Georgia and a school like Colorado State? And what's that like? If you spent your whole career at Georgia, like, I mean, what are you doing in your head as a coach?
Depth. I mean, SEC, you got 3 or 4 left tackles. At CSU, you've got 1, maybe, that's of a caliber. SEC, everybody's 5-star rated, 4-star rated. Here, if you're getting guys out of Colorado, some guys out of California, you're talking about 2-star recruits. So there's a big talent drop-off. But what happens in the Mountain West Conference, it's happened with BYU, it's happened in Utah when Urban Meyer was there, Colorado State last year, that one team can assemble a lot of talent. But CSU went down to Alabama, Georgia.
Alabama. Yeah, no, it was Alabama.
They played Alabama recently.
And
2 years
McElwain,
ago,
when he went, and they were beaten.
They got their lunch handed to them.
Yeah.
53-6 or something, but they at least, if moral victories, they at least
held up in the first half.
Yeah, they were proud of their effort.
I'm going to give a little bit different answer. Kids are big everywhere these days. You can find them anywhere. Speed is what I think separates
at the
SEC from so many other conferences.
That's what
you don't find that in the
CU.
Yeah, you don't find that in the Mountain West.
CU doesn't have the talent to
and
play
they're
in the
exposed
Pac-12
more readily
because of speed. You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, Florida can get 30 guys out of the state of Florida that are faster than anybody on a Mountain West Conference team. The question I would ask both of you is, what's going to happen first? McIntyre's going to get fired, or Bobo's going to leave for the Southeastern Conference?
Get hired somewhere else as a head coach?
I think McIntyre's going to get fired. We got to remember something. He's not Rick George's guy. And if they don't show even more I mean, people are actually talking about a bowl game this year. Are you kidding me? How about we work first on winning a game in the conference? I think if the CU team doesn't show, if they can't win a conference game or two, I think Rick George might make a move.
I think that if things keep going the way they did last year, like improvement, and they keep going, that there's going to be maybe more patience with him. Maybe not Hawkins level patience, but more patience with him, and that Mike Bobo, if he shows progress here in 2 years, could be gone. Just
what else
like
you got?
Speaking of football and the line, Ryan Harris, the guy who has come in since Ryan Clady's season-ending knee injury. We did a little profile about him today and just sort of looked at his growth from the time that he's kind of been in all 3 phases. He's been a Bronco, then a former Bronco on the sidelines, and now he's returned as a veteran Bronco, a guy who's got experience. And Gary Kubiak talked a little bit about sort of the change and difference he's seen, because Kubiak and Harris played with each other in Houston for some time, and just how he's done all these little things, like he's focused more on sleep, he's focused more on eating healthy, he's focused more on being a leader. And I know that the line is a really big question, but it seems like he's the kind of guy that you want on a team. What have you guys seen from Ryan Harris, if anything, so far in camp? Do you like what you see, or is this a continuance of big question mark and we're really not going to know anything until we see it in preseason?
I think if you're a fan of the Broncos and you go, boy, he's got to be 35 years old or something. He's like 28.
Yeah.
I mean, he's gone through a lot and been in a lot of different places. He's been with 3 different teams that you tend to think of him as one of those guys, 32, 30, Mark Schlereth, been around forever. But he's still a young guy. I mean, I did over the weekend, they possibly could have 30 guys on this team that are 25 or younger, and only 7 or 8 that are 30 or older. So that kind of shows you. I think what's been kind of lost here. This is a very young team, but you tend to think of,
especially on the line.
Yeah, you think of guys. I think because he's played in the zone blocking scheme. He's a smart guy. He is a veteran guy now. He's played, as I said, 3 different places, and I think he adapts to it well. And he's a guy that's not going to get burned, but he's a guy that could get overwhelmed. Does that make sense?
He is their starter at right tackle.
I think his presence is absolutely necessary because of one of the things Woody said. They're so young. Left tackle could be a rookie, Sombrero. Right. Left guard could be a rookie, Garcia. The center, and Matt Paradis is now getting most of the reps with the #1 team at center. He's only in his 2nd year, I believe. You better have some veterans somewhere on that offensive line. The whole right side is Luis Vasquez and Harris, and people don't realize this. Ryan Harris played for Kansas City last year and graded out really, really well, according to Pro Football Focus. So that's a nice find for John Elway and Matt Russell.
I had a thought on Friday. They'll run behind the 2 veterans on the right and expect the 2 youngsters on the left to pass protect well. Concentrate on that. That's what I think is going to happen.
Last thing, tonight against the Mets in New York, Jon Gray will be making his 2nd start. And this is what he says about his first time out. I started a little rough, but I got myself out of situations. I want to hit the ground running this next time. I want to be sharper and not make as many mistakes. He had a no decision last time. Do you see this as being any different this time around in terms of his pitching outing against the Mets?
I think it's going to be tough. It is New York. The Mets are in the middle of a pennant race. Good news for Jon Gray is it's not a great Mets lineup. Bad news for Jon Gray is, or maybe good news, he's going to be going against John Neese tonight, a decent pitcher, but not one of the better starters in the Mets rotation. You know, they're full of young, hard-throwing guys. Neese is not one of them. So, you know what? Are we going to do this every time Jon Gray takes the mound? Are we going to be looking with a magnifying glass
this is the guy.
every single start? I guess we are. I'm going to be watching. I'm anxious to see it.
The Rockies are 15 games out of 15 games below 500.
There's no race right now.
There's no race right now.
Really? I just hope he's not a blowfish again. He spent that whole time in the game going. He looks like a guy
That's how you relax in baseball. You take a deep breath before you pitch. You take a deep breath before you step into the batter's box. He's just trying to relax.
Yeah, but you were right about one thing. He's facing a team that's not as good a hitting lineup as the last time he pitched, and I think the game will slow down. And I'm having fun with him, but he was like that. I mean, even when he was batting, I mean, I'm sure someone told him, you know, take a deep breath all the time. What he looked like was a guy that was learning how to skin dive. I mean, he was like, I'm going under again. So I hope he pitches well. They need a little.
The Rockies are at least showing some fight. I don't know if you watched any of the game yesterday. I mean, they almost screwed it up again, but they managed to walk out with a 6-4
Dan,
win.
they've got 2 months left in the season. They're going to win a few games. Okay.
I'm trying to give them something.
Thanks for coming by. Dan Petty, check him out at denverpost.com. And that segment brought to you by the Harmony Foundation. It's Colorado's best treatment program for drug and alcohol addiction. It's located right near Estes Park.
I knew what that reminded me of.
What?
When my wife, when my daughter was born, and my wife was going,
breathe, breathe, breathe.
Yeah.
Here's an ice chip. Breathe. Visit HarmonyFoundationInc.com.
I was trying to figure out what I compared him to, but that's what it.
If you have a problem with alcohol or drug addiction, HarmonyFoundationInc.com.